Hello friends, in this video tutorial let us start with our training for SSRS, and we will start with some notes about installation of SSRS, and then we will be creating our first SSRS report. Okay, so for the purpose of this video tutorial let us go to SSDT. Now before creating the first project for SSRS or creating the first report for SSRS, we need to understand something about the installation. Okay, so installation for SSRS will require the administrator user, the built-in administrator user. Okay, so in case if the built-in administrator user is not enabled in your PC, then in order to enable it, you can go to run, type cmd, okay, and then open cmd command prompt as administrator, and then type this command, that is net user administrator /active:/s. Okay, so this will enable the administrator account, the default built-in administrator account. Okay, now once this administrator account has been enabled, you go and change the password for this account, and then you install your SSRS using this administrator account. Okay, so now once the installation is done, you can go to SSRS reporting services configuration manager. Okay, so once you go to reporting services configuration manager, then we will understand these options in detail in some future video, but in this video tutorial let us understand two things. First is web service URL. So this is the URL on which the reports are available. Okay, so let it connect. So this is the URL on which our reports, once we develop, are deployed. Okay, and this is the URL through which the end users access the reports. Okay, so let us copy this. Okay, and there is another URL. Okay, and that is report manager URL. So if you click this, then this through the second URL, that is report manager URL, you can change various settings and configurations for your reports. So this is for the report developers. Okay, this is not for the end users, whereas this URL is for end users, because end users access our reports which have been deployed on the reporting services website using this URL. Okay, so let us copy this URL. Now let us create the first report, SSRS report. Okay, now let's go and create a new project. So let's select reporting services. It will give two options. So we will go for the first option, that is using a report wizard. Okay, so let us go and select SSRS project folder. Let us name this project as SSRS project. Okay, so let's copy this, paste. Let us select project wizard. Okay, report wizard. Let's click OK. So now the report wizard starts. Okay, so let's click next. Let us first of all to connect to database. Okay, we will require a data source. So using this data source, we will be connecting to the database, and then we will be fetching the data using a query, right? And that query we will call as data set. Okay, so first of all let us name this as SSRS DB. Okay, and let us connect to our database. SSRS DB. Okay, now if you want to use this connection, that is this data source, only in your this particular report that we are creating right now, that is only in your first report, then you can just click next. Okay, so that will be a data source embedded in your report. But if you want to use this particular database connection for multiple reports, then you can make this particular data source as shared data source. if you click over here, that is make this as a shared data source, then this data source will be created over here in this folder, shared data source folder, and it will be then available to all the reports that we create. So let us make this as shared data source, and it is also a good practice to make it a shared data source if you are connecting to the same database in multiple reports, so that when we move from our development environment to production environment, let's say, and our server changes, then we need to make change only in one particular place. Okay, so we can update the connection string at one particular place, and it gets updated or reflected in all the reports that are using that particular data source. So let's click next. Now let's build the query. This query we will call as, so we have added the table. Let us select all the columns. Okay, although it is not a good practice to have star in our query, but this is a first sample report, so let us go with star. Okay, so this query that we are using to retrieve data for this first report, this we will call as data set. And there are two types of reports that we can create, tabular and matrix. We will look at matrix reports in some future video tutorial, but in this report let us go with the tabular format. Now let us select the columns that we want. Okay, so except the first column, we want all the columns. Okay, now there are three parts in this wizard. We will look at all these parts in detail in some future video tutorial. Okay, so let us click next. Basically the head, this portion, that is the top of the page, is the page section. Okay, then over here these are the detail rows. Okay, these are the detail rows, so that's where we want all our columns. But if you want to create a group, that is the groups which organizes this detail rows among different groups, then we can create groups by putting column over here. Okay, so in this first report we will not be creating group, or we will not be having anything in the page section. We will be having everything in the detail part. Okay, so let's click next. Now over here you can select the format. Okay, so let's go ahead with the first format. Now this is very important. We have to provide the report server URL, that is the URL where our report will be deployed. Okay, so this is the report server URL, right? So let us copy this and let us provide it over here. Okay, paste. Okay, so this is the place where the reports will be deployed, and deployment folder, this will be the folder under which it will be deployed. And we can see this folder if we go back over here. Okay, so in this section, in the report manager URL, we can see the folders. Okay, so let's go and click next. So let us call this as first report. Okay, let us click finish. Okay, so now our first report is created. If you want, you can change the label of the report. Let's call it as sales report. Okay, now if you want to view the data of the report, you can go to preview section. Okay, so this is how our report will look like. Okay, and if you, let's save everything, let us deploy. Now if you go to deployment properties, then this is very important property, target server URL, and this is what we specified in the wizard. Okay, this is the URL that we had specified in the wizard. Okay, and that's where our reporting server is lying. Okay, web service is lying. So let us click and deploy. So we can see that one deployment has succeeded, that is the deployment for one report has succeeded. Okay, and what it has deployed? It has deployed the data source first and then the report. Okay, then the first report. So let us go to our URL. Okay, so if you refresh it, then you will see the data source folder. Okay, in this the data source has been deployed, and we will see the project folder in which the first report has been deployed. If you click the first report, then we can see the report. Okay, so this is our first sales report. Okay, so I hope friends this video tutorial is useful to you. Thank you.